What if I told you that a predicted mini ice age, the biology of a flower, and the very nature of human consciousness were all connected by a single undiscovered particle? Today, we are diving into a really dense, really unique worldview that says they are. Strap in, because this one's a wild ride.
So, where does all this come from? Well, it all kicks off with this incredibly stark and urgent warning. The source material opens with what it calls a humanitarian appeal for 2025 and beyond, claiming this could be the start of a feared mini ice age. This is the crisis that the entire theory is built to solve.
So what's the trigger for this crisis? The source points to one single unprecedented event: monsoon clouds that have absorbed so much heat energy they can actually cross the Himalayas for the very first time in modern history. And this, according to the source, is the first domino to fall in a massive chain reaction.
The immediate result of those clouds crossing over is something the source has a unique name for: cloud blasting. The idea is that these superheated clouds, instead of just raining normally, basically explode with massive, completely unexpected flooding on both sides of the mountains.
And if that wasn't enough, it doesn't stop with the flooding. The source also predicts a feared mega-Himalayan earthquake. We're talking a massive seismic event, maybe an 8 or even a 9 on the Richter scale. So the stage is set with this devastating 1-2 punch of atmospheric and geological disasters.
Okay, so after painting this pretty grim picture, the source completely shifts gears. It pivots from the problems to its proposed cosmic explanation for everything. And the absolute core of this idea is something called the Philfo grace particle.
So what on earth is this particle? Well, it's described as a stream of fundamental particles you might have heard of, like neutrinos and axions. But the theory claims that through a force it calls cymatics, think of those cool patterns you see when sound vibrates sand on a plate. These particles organize themselves into the building blocks of all matter and all life. And there's a whole progression to it. According to the theory, you start with a fundamental particle, like a neutrino. It goes through these intermediate stages, like axions and something called the void, to eventually form what the source calls 2D biomatter, which it considers the absolute bedrock of life itself.
Okay, that's the particle physics part. But how does this connect to, the actual physical world? Well, that's where the 5D green Earth model comes into play. It's presented as nature's own cosmic blueprint.
Now, to make this a little easier to wrap your head around, the model uses a flower as an analogy. And it's actually pretty cool. It suggests that different parts of a flower have different energy functions. The petals are for light energy, the leaves are for sound energy, and the filaments are for vibration energy. Each part has a very specific job in this whole cosmic system. And here is where it gets really wild. This framework isn't just talking about different kinds of energy. It's making a much bigger claim: that by processing light, sound, and vibration, these different parts of a plant are actually creating unique, multidimensional forms of DNA.
This theory lays out 3 distinct types of DNA. First, you've got your 4D DNA, which comes from fruits and is made of amino acids. Then you level up to 5D DNA, which comes from leaves and is composed of essential oils. And finally, you get the most complex form, 11D DNA, from seeds, which combines both. It's this whole biological hierarchy tied directly to a plant.
All right, so we've gone from the cosmos to plants, and now the theory turns its focus inward, to us. It argues that our bodies are a direct mirror of the planet itself. The source calls this idea the Earth inside our bodies.
And that brings us to the central question of this whole section. Is the human body a literal, tiny version of the entire Earth system? According to this framework, the answer isn't just yes, it's a foundational truth. And the one-to-one comparisons it makes are, they're pretty startling. Get this: volcanoes erupting on Earth that's seen as a mirror of hypertension in the human body. Floods are analogous to heart attacks, and earthquakes are directly compared to brain strokes. According to the source, this isn't a metaphor. It's a direct, literal parallel.
It goes even further than that, though. The model suggests our body isn't just a passive map of the Earth. It's an active participant in all this cosmic physics. It describes the human body as a live bioaccelerator.
So what does a bioaccelerator do? Well, the theory says it works like a biomagnet. The idea is that our bodies are actively interacting with and even helping to balance Earth's own magnetic and thermal fields, all by processing those Philfo particles we talked about earlier.
Okay, let's take a breath. We've gone from a planetary crisis to particle physics to human biology. So the big question is, how does this grand theory propose to actually solve the huge problems it started with? Let's get into the applications.
This brings us to the solutions, and believe me, they are just as unconventional as the theory itself. The source suggests developing technologies like earthquake-combating magnet systems, creating energy from neutrinos, and even using that force of cymatics to manage seismic waves. Each one of these sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
And really, this is the ultimate promise of this whole worldview. It suggests that if we can just understand the universe as this one, deeply interconnected system, all the way from a single particle to our planet and to ourselves, then we can literally engineer a sustainable future.
So, we're left with this really fascinating thought. We've just walked through a model of reality that links the entire cosmos directly to our own consciousness. It's complex, it's unconventional, for sure, but it makes you wonder, what if the biggest, most terrifying problems we face require us to find a completely new way of seeing the world?